The soft hum of computers filled the observation deck of Deep Space Monitoring Station, Horizon. James Reed yawned as he adjusted his headset, eyes fixed on the console's scrolling data. 3 months into his 6-month rotation, and each day blended into the next with monotonous precision. "Another quiet day in the void," he muttered, taking a sip from his coffee mug. The station orbited just beyond Mars, its array of powerful antennas constantly scanning the depths of space. Humanity had been listening for decades, hoping for some sign that they weren't alone in the universe. So far, silence had been the only answer. Reed was about to switch to his secondary monitoring tasks when a small anomaly caught his eye. A faint pattern emerged from the background noise, something distinct from the usual cosmic static. He straightened in his chair, coffee forgotten. "Computer, isolate frequency band 422.7, he commanded, fingers dancing across the controls. The pattern grew clearer, a repeating sequence of pulses with mathematical precision. Reed's heart began to race. This wasn't random. This wasn't natural. "Computer, run comparison against all known human transmissions." "No match found," the computer responded flatly. Reed pressed the intercom button. "Commander Taylor, I need you on the observation deck. Now." Within minutes, Commander Emma Taylor arrived, her normally composed face showing concern. "This better be important, Reed. I was in the middle of the weekly report." "Look at this," Reed said, pointing to his screen. "It started about 20 minutes ago. It's weak but distinct, and it's not one of ours." Taylor leaned over his shoulder, eyes narrowing as she studied the pattern. "Could be equipment malfunction. Run diagnostics." "Already did. Everything's functioning perfectly." Reed pulled up another screen. "And look at this. The signal has a mathematical structure. Prime numbers, repeated in sequence." Taylor's expression hardened. "Where's it coming from?" "TOS CD system, approximately 12 light-years away." The commander straightened, running a hand through her short gray hair. 12 light-years. That's practically next door. "And that's not all," Reed continued, excitement building in his voice. "The pattern keeps changing, becoming more complex. It's like it's trying to build a language." "Or a warning," Taylor said quietly. She stared at the screen for a long moment, then turned toward the central communication station. "Open a secure channel to United Space Command. Priority Alpha." "Yes, Commander." Reed continued analyzing the signal as Taylor spoke quietly with her superiors. The pattern was indeed evolving, becoming more structured by the minute. This wasn't just a beacon, it was a message. Taylor returned 30 minutes later, her face unreadable. "They're sending a ship. The Venture. In the meantime, we're to continue monitoring and analyzing the signal. No word of this leaves this station. Understood?" Reed nodded, too excited to speak. After years of listening to empty space, he'd finally heard something. Something that might change everything. Captain Alex Morgan stood at the viewport of the Venture, watching as the last supply containers were loaded into the ship's cargo bay. At 42, Morgan had commanded deep space missions before, but never one assembled with such urgency. "Captain," a voice called from behind him. Dr. Lisa Wells approached, tablet in hand. The xenolinguist had been pulled from her university position with minimal explanation. "The linguistics lab is set up. We're ready to go whenever you are." Morgan nodded. "Good. We launch in 3 hours. Any progress with the signal analysis?" Wells tucked a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. "It's unlike anything I've ever seen. The mathematical sequences are just the foundation. There are embedded patterns that suggest a complex symbolic language. Whatever sent this knows how to communicate across species barriers. Or they're just broadcasting in every way they can, hoping someone understands," Morgan replied. "Maybe." Wells hesitated. "Captain, do you believe we're really going to meet aliens?" Morgan turned back to the viewport. "I don't know. But something sent that signal, and Space Command wouldn't rush us out there if they thought it was nothing." The ship's intercom crackled. Captain Morgan to engineering. Engineer Wilson requests your presence. Morgan sighed. Duty calls. Make sure your team is ready, Doctor. If this is first contact, I want humanity's best foot forward. In engineering, Tom Wilson was elbow deep in a tangle of cables. The engineer didn't look up as Morgan entered. Captain, you need to see this. Wilson gestured toward a large screen displaying fragments of the mysterious signal. The station sent us the latest data packets. The signal's not just a language. It contains schematics. Schematics? For what? Wilson finally looked up, eyes wide with wonder. Technology. Advanced technology. Look at these energy curves. They suggest propulsion systems beyond anything we theorized. And this, he pointed to another section, could be a communication device that works on principles we barely understand. Morgan studied the screen, a chill running down his spine. Are you telling me they're sending us blueprints? I think they're sending us help, Wilson replied. And based on these readings, they need help too. The signal's getting weaker, Captain. Whatever's sending it is losing power. 3 hours later, the Venture detached from Earth's orbital station. As the engines ignited, pushing the ship toward the distant star of Ta Ceti, Morgan addressed the crew from the bridge. We all know our mission is unprecedented, a possible first contact situation. We don't know what we'll find. Friends, enemies, or something beyond our understanding. But we represent humanity now, all its hopes and fears. He paused, looking at each face on the bridge. Let's make it count. As the Venture accelerated to full speed, the signal continued to change. New patterns emerge, more urgent now. In the linguistics lab, Dr. Wells worked tirelessly, piecing together fragments of meaning. It's definitely a distress call, she reported during the first crew briefing. They're in trouble, critical trouble, and they're giving us the means to help them, if we can understand it in time. The journey would take weeks, even with the Venture's advanced engines, as Earth became a distant blue dot behind them. The crew settled into their routines, all while the alien signal grew increasingly complex and increasingly desperate. On the 14th day, as Morgan was reviewing the ship's systems, an alert sounded. Captain to the bridge, came the urgent call. When Morgan arrived, his first officer pointed to the main screen. The signal pattern just changed dramatically. Look. The display showed a new sequence, repeating with unmistakable clarity. They've detected us, Dr. Wells said, eyes wide. They know we're coming. The message was changing again, becoming clearer, more direct, as if a door was opening between two worlds. Humanity was about to step through. The Venture sliced through the darkness of space, its engines humming with steady determination. Inside the ship, Captain Morgan stared at the holographic display of their trajectory toward Ta Ceti. The alien signal had grown stronger over the past week, pulsing with what could only be described as urgency. How much longer until we reach the source? Morgan asked, not taking his eyes off the display. Navigation Officer Paul Davis checked his readings. At current speed, 4 days and 7 hours, Captain. Morgan nodded, his face tight with concentration. The closer they got to the signal's origin, the more the crew felt the weight of their mission. They were potentially the first humans to make contact with an alien civilization, a thought both thrilling and terrifying. In the linguistics lab, Dr. Lisa Wells hadn't slept properly in days. Cups of cold coffee littered her workstation as she studied the ever-evolving signal patterns. Her eyes burned from staring at screens, but she couldn't stop. Not when they were so close to a breakthrough. Look at this sequence, she said to her assistant, pointing to a repeating pattern. It's showing up every 14 minutes now. And it's followed by this new set of symbols. Her assistant leaned closer. Could it be counting down? Wells froze, then quickly pulled up previous recordings. You're right. It's a countdown, not in time as we measure it, but in distance. She grabbed the intercom. Captain Morgan, I need to see you immediately. When Morgan arrived, Wells could barely contain her excitement. "They know we're coming, Captain. The signal is counting down our approach. They're tracking us." Morgan's expression remained guarded. "Is that good news or bad?" "I don't know yet," Wells admitted. "But there's more. The signal contains data packets, massive amounts of information compressed into bursts. We've started to decode them." She pulled up a series of strange images on her screen. "These appear to be technical schematics, but for technology far beyond our current understanding." Morgan studied the images. "Any idea what they're for?" "Some of it resembles propulsion systems, but the principles are unlike anything in our physics textbooks. It's as if—" Wells hesitated, then continued, "It's as if they're trying to give us a crash course in their technology before we arrive." In the engineering section, Tom Wilson was having his own breakthrough. After days of analyzing the alien schematics, something had clicked. He rushed to find the captain, nearly colliding with him in the corridor. "Captain, I figured out part of the signal," Wilson said, breathless with excitement. "It's not just showing us their technology. It's showing us how to modify our own to be compatible with theirs." Morgan followed Wilson to engineering, where complex diagrams covered every screen. Wilson pointed to a particularly intricate design. "This is a communication device that operates on quantum principles. If I'm reading this correctly, they want us to build it." "Can you?" Morgan asked. Wilson grinned. "Already started. I've repurposed some of our quantum sensors. It won't be perfect, but it might just work." Morgan placed a hand on Wilson's shoulder. "Good work. How soon can it be operational?" 24 hours, maybe less. Make it happen." As the ship entered the outer boundaries of the TOV-CD system, strange phenomena began affecting their systems. Instruments flickered, power levels fluctuated, and the ship's artificial gravity wavered momentarily. "What's happening?" Morgan demanded as red warning lights flashed on the bridge. The ship's chief systems officer, Rachel Brown, frantically checked her readings. "Unknown, Captain. It's like we're passing through some kind of energy field. Nothing harmful yet, but it's interfering with our systems." "Could it be defensive?" Morgan asked. "I don't think so," Brown replied. "The pattern seems natural, or at least not intentionally hostile." Wilson's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, the quantum communicator just activated on its own. I think we're receiving something." Morgan and Wells rushed to engineering, where Wilson stood before a device that pulsed with an eerie blue light. The makeshift quantum communicator was alive with activity, though they had never turned it on. "It initialized itself when we entered this region of space," Wilson explained, his face bathed in the blue glow. "I think their technology recognized ours." Wells approached the device cautiously. "Can we communicate back?" "I believe so," Wilson said, "but I'm not sure." He was interrupted by a sudden burst of light from the communicator. A three-dimensional image formed above it, a star chart, with a pulsing point of light. "That's where we are," Davis said, having followed them to engineering. "In fact," he pointed to another blinking light. "Must be them." The image shifted, showing a massive object orbiting a distant planet. As the perspective zoomed in, they could make out the unmistakable shape of a spacecraft. But unlike any human vessel, it was enormous, with sweeping curves and structures that seemed to flow like liquid metal. Parts of it glowed with the same blue light as their communicator, while other sections appeared dark and damaged. "It's beautiful," Wells whispered. The image changed again, showing the ship more clearly. Now they could see the extent of the damage. Huge sections torn away, energy spilling from ruptured systems. "They're hurt," Morgan said quietly. "Badly hurt." A new series of images appeared, showing smaller objects approaching the damaged vessel. The message was clear. "They want us to dock with them," Morgan realized. "They're asking for help." As the venture continued its approach, the alien ship grew visible through their actual viewports, no longer just an image on a screen. It was breathtaking in scale, easily 20 times the size of their vessel. Despite its damaged state, it radiated an aura of advanced technology that made the venture seem primitive by comparison. "All hands, prepare for approach procedures," Morgan announced over the ship-wide comm. "This is what we came for." First contact protocols are now in effect. In the observation lounge, off-duty crew members gathered at the windows, staring in awe at the alien vessel. For humans who had grown up wondering if they were alone in the universe, the answer now hung before them, vast and undeniable. Wells stood beside Morgan on the bridge, her heart pounding. "What do we say to them?" she asked. "What's the first word from humanity to another intelligent species?" Morgan considered for a moment, then smiled slightly. "We say, we heard your call. We're here to help." As the venture closed the final distance to the alien ship, the quantum communicator pulsed once more. This time, a simple message formed in the air before them, not in any human language, but somehow instantly understandable to everyone who saw it. "Thank you for coming. Please hurry." The venture approached the massive alien vessel with cautious precision. Captain Morgan stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind his back, watching as the navigation team maneuvered their ship toward what appeared to be a docking area. The alien craft dwarfed their vessel, its damaged hull stretching out like a wounded giant against the backdrop of stars. "Approach vector locked in," Davis reported, his voice steady despite the tension. "Estimated docking in 5 minutes." Morgan nodded. "All boarding party members report to airlock 3. Full environmental suits required." Dr. Wells adjusted her helmet, triple-checking the seals on her environmental suit. As the ship's xenolinguist, her presence on the first boarding party was essential, though her hands trembled slightly at the thought of what awaited them. Security Chief Marcus Stone stood beside her, his imposing frame made even larger by his suit. He carried a standard-issue sidearm, though Morgan had given strict orders that weapons were to remain holstered unless immediate danger presented itself. "Nervous, Doctor?" Stone asked, noticing her fidgeting with her equipment. Wells smiled tightly, terrified and excited in equal measure. "You?" Stone's expression remained neutral, just focused on keeping everyone safe. Morgan joined them at the airlock, accompanied by Engineer Wilson, who carried a portable version of the quantum communicator. The small device pulsed with the now familiar blue light, seemingly eager to connect with its creators. "Remember," Morgan addressed the team, "we're here to help, but caution is our priority. We stay together. No one touches anything without clearance. If anything feels wrong, we retreat immediately." The team nodded in unison as a soft shudder ran through the venture. They had docked. "Pressure equalization complete," came the announcement over their suit comms. "Airlock ready." Morgan took a deep breath. "Let's make history." The outer door of the airlock slid open, revealing a short connector tunnel that had extended from the alien ship to meet their vessel. The tunnel walls pulsed with the same blue energy they had seen in the transmissions, creating an ethereal pathway between the two spacecraft. "Atmosphere readings?" Morgan asked as they approached the tunnel. Wilson checked his instruments. "Oxygen present, but at lower levels than Earth normal. High nitrogen content. Temperature approximately 15 degrees Celsius. Our suits will keep us comfortable, but the environment isn't immediately lethal to humans." They walked through the connector tunnel slowly, each step taking them further from everything familiar. At the far end, a circular doorway stood closed, its surface etched with intricate patterns that seemed to flow like water. As they approached, the patterns shifted, and the door slid open without a sound. Beyond lay a vast chamber that took their breath away. The ceiling arched high above them, at least 30 meters tall, with walls that curved organically rather than meeting at sharp angles. The blue light emanated from the very structure itself, as if the materials were alive with energy. Parts of the chamber were dark, however, with obvious signs of damage. Sections where the elegant architecture had been torn away, revealing complicated systems beneath. "My God," whispered Wells. "It's beautiful." Wilson's quantum communicator suddenly pulsed brighter, and a soft humming filled their helmets. The sound organized itself into patterns, not quite speech, but clearly communication. Wells moved forward, her eyes wide with concentration. They're trying to establish contact. Wilson, can you adjust the communicator to send as well as receive? Wilson nodded, making quick adjustments to the device. The humming changed in response, becoming more structured. Suddenly, a section of the wall before them shimmered, and a figure emerged. The humans froze, staring at their first alien. The being stood taller than any human, nearly 3 meters in height, with a slender form that seemed almost fragile. Its skin, if it could be called skin, glowed with the same blue luminescence as the ship, pulsing gently with what might have been its heartbeat. Where a human would have a face, this being had a smooth, featureless surface that nevertheless gave the impression of watching them intently. Wells stepped forward automatically, hand raised in a gesture of peace. "Hello," she said, knowing the word itself wouldn't be understood, but hoping the tone would convey their intentions. The being tilted its head, then raised its own hand, a limb with 4 long, delicate fingers that tapered to points. The quantum communicator in Wilson's hands pulsed in sequence with the alien's glow. More figures emerged from the walls. 5, then 10, then more, each glowing with varying intensities of blue light. Some moved with difficulty, their forms flickering as if struggling to maintain cohesion. "They're injured," Wells whispered, "or whatever equivalent they have to injury." The first being approached them slowly and extended its hand toward the communicator. Wilson looked to Morgan, who nodded permission. The alien's fingers hovered over the device, and the blue light intensified. Suddenly, a voice emerged from the communicator, synthesized but understandable. "You came. Thank you." The humans exchanged stunned glances. Wells recovered first. "Yes, we received your distress call. We've come to help if we can." The alien's form pulsed more rapidly. "We are the Lumina. Our ship is failing. Many are already lost." Morgan stepped forward. "I'm Captain Alex Morgan of the Earth vessel Venture. What happened to your ship?" The being, the Lumina, seemed to dim slightly. "We fled. The Harvesters found our world. We were the only ship to escape." "Harvesters?" Stone asked, his hand unconsciously moving closer to his weapon. "They consume everything. Worlds, stars, life." The luminous form flickered with what might have been distress. "We traveled far, but our ship was damaged in the escape. Power systems failing. Life support critical." Another Lumina approached, its glow noticeably fainter. It communicated directly with the first in pulses of light. The translator struggled, but fragments came through. "Not much time. Core breach imminent. Remaining survivors." Wells looked around at the chamber with new understanding. "Your ship is dying." "Yes," the first Lumina confirmed. "Soon, catastrophic failure. We numbered thousands once. Now only 47 remain." Morgan's expression hardened with determination. "How can we help?" "Take us with you," the Lumina said simply. "Our physical forms can adapt. We need only energy and safety." Morgan hesitated only briefly. "How much time do we have?" "Your measurement, perhaps 20 of your hours." Wilson spoke up. "Captain, the Venture can't hold 47 additional passengers, not with life support configured for humans." The Lumina pulsed. "We can compress our energy states. 10 of your crew spaces would sustain us." Morgan nodded. "We'll need to prepare. And we'll need to understand more about your needs." He was interrupted by a sudden alarm blaring through the alien ship. The lights dimmed, then flared, and the Lumina all pulsed rapidly in what was clearly distress. "What's happening?" Morgan demanded. The translator crackled. "They have found us. The Harvesters. Scout ships entering this system." Stone's hand now rested firmly on his weapon. "How far?" "Hours away, but they will detect your vessel." Morgan made his decision instantly. "We need to evacuate you now." Stone, return to the Venture and begin preparations for emergency passengers. Wilson, work with the Lumina to adapt our systems for their needs. Wells, gather as much information as you can about these harvesters. As the team sprang into action, the first Lumina approached Morgan again. Its glow had steadied somewhat. "You help us without knowing us," it observed. Morgan looked directly at where he thought the being's eyes might be. "That's what humanity does at its best. We help." The luminous form brightened. "Perhaps this is why the old stories speak of your kind. You know about humans?" Wells asked, surprised. "Not humans, but beings like you. Solid, adaptable, brave." The luminous glow pulsed gently. "The stars have many children. Today, 2 families meet." As alarms continued to sound throughout the dying ship, the humans and Lumina began working together, racing against time while a greater threat loomed at the edge of the system. A threat that would soon bring these 2 species even closer together in the face of annihilation. The Venture's corridors bustled with frantic activity. Crew members who had expected a mission of peaceful exploration now found themselves preparing for refugees and a potential enemy encounter. Captain Morgan stood in the ship's main conference room, watching as the first recordings from the Lumina played on the large display screen. "This was our home world, Luminara," explained Ilar, the Lumina who had first greeted them. Unlike the others, Ilar had quickly mastered the quantum communicator, allowing for clearer translation. The screen showed a beautiful planet with swirling blue oceans and land masses covered in what looked like crystalline forests that sparkled under twin suns. The sight was breathtaking, an alien world teeming with life unlike anything on Earth. Then the recording shifted. Dark shapes appeared at the edge of the Luminara system, massive objects moving with deliberate purpose. "The harvesters," Ilar said, the translator conveying a tone of dread. The objects resembled enormous mechanical insects, with multiple extending arms and central bodies that pulsed with red energy. They moved toward the outer planets of the system with frightening speed. "What are they?" Dr. Wells asked, unable to look away from the screen. "We do not know their origin," Ilar replied. "They appeared in our neighboring systems first. We observed, we studied, we prepared, but it was not enough." The recording continued, showing the harvesters descending on the outermost planet. What happened next made everyone in the room flinch. The mechanical entities surrounded the planet, their arms extending down to the surface. Where they touched, the planet's surface simply disappeared. Layer by layer, the harvesters consumed everything: atmosphere, oceans, crust, mantle, all devoured with mechanical efficiency. They consumed 4 planets before reaching Luminara. Ilar continued as the horrifying footage played. "We had time to evacuate some, but not all. Our ship carried 10,000 souls when we fled." Morgan's face was grim, and now only 47 remain. Ilar's form dimmed in what they now recognized as sadness. "We were pursued, damaged. Many lost containment during the journey." Stone, who had been silently watching from the corner, finally spoke. "And you believe these harvesters are heading toward Earth?" "Yes," Ilar confirmed. "They follow energy patterns through space. Your sun, your planet. They will be targets. They are systematic, thorough." Morgan turned to his navigation officer. "Davis, based on the harvester's trajectory and speed from the recordings, how long would they take to reach Earth?" Davis made some quick calculations. "If they maintain the speed shown here, approximately 2 Earth years." A heavy silence fell over the room. 2 years to prepare humanity for an enemy that consumed entire planets. "Captain," Wilson's voice came over the intercom, breaking the silence. "You need to come to engineering. Immediately." In the engineering section, Wilson stood with another Lumina, this one with a slightly greener tint to its glow. They were bent over a complex display, showing schematics unlike anything Morgan had seen before. "Captain," Wilson said, his eyes bright with excitement despite the dire situation. "This is Trill, their chief engineer. We've been working on integrating some of their technology with ours, and He paused, searching for words. It's revolutionary. Thrill's form pulsed as the translator conveyed its words. Your propulsion systems are primitive but adaptable. With modifications, your vessel could achieve speeds your science considers impossible. Wilson nodded enthusiastically. We're talking about reaching Earth in days, not weeks. And the same technology could be applied to defensive systems. Morgan looked at the schematics carefully. Will these modifications interfere with the evacuation? No, Trill replied. They will enhance it, but we must work quickly. Harvester scouts are already in this system. As if to punctuate Trill's warning, the ship's alert system suddenly blared. Unknown vessels detected at the edge of the system, announced the tactical officer over the intercom, moving at high velocity toward our position. Morgan rushed back to the bridge, where the main screen showed 3 small objects approaching, each resembling miniature versions of the planet-consuming horrors they had just witnessed in the recordings. Time to intercept, Morgan demanded. Approximately 4 hours at current speed, came the reply. Morgan turned to Elar, who had followed him to the bridge. We need to evacuate your people now. How soon can you be ready? We have already begun compression procedures, Elar said. 1 hour is needed. You have 30 minutes, Morgan replied firmly. Stone, organize teams to guide the Lumina to their designated areas. Wells, stay with Elar and assist with any communication issues. Wilson, work with Trill on those propulsion modifications. I want us ready to move the instant everyone is aboard. As the crew rushed to comply, Morgan stared at the approaching harvester scouts on the screen. And someone find me a way to slow those things down. The evacuation proceeded with controlled urgency. The Lumina, compressed into their most energy-efficient forms, resembled small spheres of intense blue light. Crew members guided them through the ship's corridors to specially prepared quarters where energy converters had been installed to sustain them. In engineering, Wilson and Trill worked frantically, making adaptations to the Venture's systems that would have taken Earth's scientists decades to develop. This connection here, Trill instructed, indicating a point on the engine schematic. Your materials can withstand the energy flow if reinforced with the alloy from our communication array. Wilson nodded, making the adjustments. The damaged section of your ship. Can we salvage more materials from it? Too dangerous, Trill replied. Core instability growing. When harvesters arrive, they will destroy it first. On the bridge, Morgan watched the evacuation progress on multiple screens. Status: 39 Lumina aboard, reported Stone. 8 more in transit. Their ship's systems are becoming increasingly unstable. Wells approached Morgan, her face showing a mixture of awe and concern. Captain, the Lumina have shared more information about the harvesters. They believe these scouts are just collecting data. They don't have the capacity to consume planets like the larger units. Small comfort, Morgan replied. Can they attack us? Yes, Wells said grimly. They're equipped with energy weapons designed to disable fleeing ships. A new alert sounded. Captain, energy surge from the Lumina vessel, called the science officer. On the main screen, they could see sections of the massive alien craft beginning to break apart, blue energy spilling into space like liquid light. Final evacuation teams, report, Morgan demanded. Last group entering the airlock now, Stone's voice came through. Docking tube integrity at 30% and falling. Morgan made a quick decision. Begin separation procedures. Prepare for emergency departure. The minutes that followed were tense. The final group of Lumina made it aboard just as the docking tube collapsed. The Venture pulled away from the dying alien ship, its engines powering up for escape. All Lumina accounted for, Stone reported. 47 beings secure. Morgan nodded in relief, then turned to Davis. Set course for Earth, maximum speed. Captain, Wilson called from engineering. The modifications are ready. Activating new propulsion system now. The Venture shuddered, then seemed to leap forward with sudden acceleration that pushed everyone against their seats. Behind them, the Lumina vessel erupted in a massive explosion of blue energy. On the tactical display, the Harvester Scouts altered course, now in pursuit of the Venture. "They're following us," the tactical officer announced. Morgan watched the approaching threat with steely determination. "Let's see how fast these harvesters really are. Wilson, give me everything those new engines have got." As the Venture surged forward with impossible speed, Morgan knew they were carrying not just 47 alien refugees, but a warning that would forever change humanity's place in the cosmos. Earth needed to prepare, and they were the only ones who could deliver the message in time. Behind them, the remains of the Lumina vessel were consumed by the Harvester Scouts, erasing the last trace of a civilization that had reached across the stars to find allies in their darkest hour. The journey back to Earth was nothing like the outbound trip, where before there had been anticipation and uncertainty, now there was urgency and purpose. The Venture, enhanced with Lumina technology, moved through space at speeds that defied human physics. Stars blurred past the viewports as the ship hurtled toward home, carrying its precious cargo of refugees and warnings. In the converted cargo bay that now served as the main Lumina living space, Dr. Wells sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by softly glowing blue spheres. Each contained a compressed Lumina, their energy forms stable but confined within the limited space of the human vessel. Elar, who had chosen to maintain a more humanoid form to facilitate communication, hovered nearby. "Your adaptation is remarkable," Wells said, making notes on her tablet. "How are the others handling the compression?" "It is uncomfortable but necessary," Elar replied, the translator conveying a tone of stoic acceptance. "Many have entered a dormant state to conserve energy." Wells looked around at the pulsing spheres. "And when we reach Earth, what will your people need?" "Space, energy, purpose." Elar's form brightened slightly. "We were scientists, explorers, builders. We wish to contribute, not simply exist as refugees." Wells nodded. "I can understand that. But I should warn you, humans can be complicated. Some will welcome you with open arms. Others will fear what's different." "Fear is universal," Elar said. "We felt it when the harvesters came. But so is hope." The luminous glow shifted to a warmer hue. "Your Captain Morgan did not hesitate to help strangers. This gives us hope for your species." On the bridge, Morgan studied the latest reports from engineering. The Lumina modifications had transformed the Venture in ways that would revolutionize human space travel. They had covered the distance back to Earth in just 6 days, a journey that should have taken weeks. "Any sign of pursuit?" Morgan asked, not looking up from his tablet. "None, Captain," replied the tactical officer. "We appear to have outrun the Harvester Scouts." Morgan nodded, but his expression remained grim. "Don't get comfortable. They know where we're headed now. Earth has just shown up on their radar." Davis turned from his navigation console. "Earth Space Control has responded to our transmission. They're confused, sir, asking for clarification on our arrival time, since we're moving significantly faster than our logged capabilities." "Tell them we'll explain everything when we arrive," Morgan said, "and inform them we'll need a secure orbital dock with specialized power systems according to the specifications we sent." Morgan stood and moved to the viewport, watching as the familiar shape of Saturn came into view. They were entering the home stretch now. Soon, they would reach Earth, and everything would change. "Captain," Davis called out, "we're receiving a direct transmission from United Space Command. Admiral Hayes wants to speak with you, privately." Morgan sighed. The debriefing was starting earlier than expected. "I'll take it in my quarters." Admiral Hayes' stern face filled the screen in Morgan's cabin. "Captain, your reports sound like something from a science fiction novel. Are you absolutely certain about these Lumina and their claims about planet-consuming machines?" "I've seen the evidence myself, Admiral," Morgan replied firmly. "The recordings show entire worlds being stripped to their cores, and the Harvester Scouts we encountered were very real." Hayes rubbed his forehead. "The Security Council is in an uproar. Half believe it's a hoax. The other half are calling for immediate militarization of space. With respect, sir, both reactions are understandable but insufficient. We need the luminous technology and knowledge if we're going to have any chance against the harvesters. And you trust these aliens. You've known them for less than 2 weeks, Morgan. Morgan considered his words carefully. I trust that their home was destroyed. I trust that they risked everything to warn us. And I trust that we need allies in a universe that just got a lot more dangerous. Hayes was silent for a long moment. Very well. When you reach Earth orbit, you'll dock at Military Station Alpha. The Lumina will remain aboard while a joint scientific and military team assesses the situation. Sir, the Lumina aren't prisoners. They're refugees, and potentially our greatest asset. That decision isn't yours to make, Captain. Follow your orders. Hayes out. As the screen went dark, Morgan sat in the silence of his quarters, weighing his duty against what he knew was right. After a moment, he reached for the intercom. Dr. Wells, please come to my quarters. Bring Elar. Earth grew larger in the viewports as the Venture approached its home planet. News of their arrival had somehow leaked to the public, and millions of people around the world were now watching live feeds of the ship's approach. Speculation ran wild about the mysterious passengers rumored to be aboard. In the ship's conference room, Morgan addressed his senior crew and Elar. Earth governments are frightened, he explained. They want to isolate you while they assess the threat. Elar's form dimmed slightly. We understand fear, but isolation will not prepare your world for what is coming. Wells spoke up. We need to show them that cooperation is the only path forward. The Lumina have technology that could help us defend Earth, but only if we work together. Wilson nodded enthusiastically. The propulsion modifications alone have advanced our capabilities by decades. Imagine what we could accomplish with their help on defensive systems. Morgan looked at each of them in turn. What I'm about to propose could end my career, possibly land us all in military detention. I believe the Lumina deserve better than to be treated as potential threats. And I believe Earth needs their help immediately, not after months of bureaucratic assessment. Stone, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. What are you suggesting, Captain? Morgan's eyes were determined. A direct appeal to the people of Earth. Dr. Wells and Elar will prepare a broadcast explaining the harvester threat and offering the Lumina's assistance. We'll transmit it globally as we enter orbit. That's against direct orders, Stone pointed out, though his tone held no judgment. Yes, it is, Morgan acknowledged. Anyone who objects can be recorded as opposing this action. No one spoke. Then, one by one, they nodded their agreement. The Venture entered Earth orbit 16 hours later. As Military Station Alpha prepared for their docking, the ship momentarily paused its approach. Across the planet below, communication systems simultaneously received and broadcast the same message. Humans around the world watched in awe as Elar's luminescent form appeared on their screens, speaking of distant worlds, terrible dangers, and the hope for alliance. Dr. Wells stood beside the alien, translating and explaining, her face earnest and determined. We come not to take, but to give. Elar's message concluded, not to conquer, but to cooperate. The stars have many children, and today, 2 families join against a common threat. The broadcast ended with Captain Morgan's steady voice. The choice before us is simple. Stand together or fall alone. 3 months later, Morgan stood on the observation deck of the new Joint Human Lumina space station. Below, Earth continued its peaceful rotation, unaware of the preparations being made to defend it. Beside him, Elar watched as a fleet of newly constructed ships, hybrids of human and Lumina technology, performed maneuvers in the distance. Your people learn quickly, Elar observed. Morgan smiled. Necessity is a powerful motivator. The harvesters will still come. Yes, Morgan agreed, but they'll find something they didn't expect. What is that? Morgan turned to look at Elar. 2 species, standing as one. Maybe that's something even the harvesters haven't encountered before. As they watched the Earth below, a brilliant blue against the blackness of space, Morgan felt something he hadn't expected when they first received that strange signal weeks ago: hope. Humanity had looked to the stars for centuries, wondering if they were alone. Now they knew they weren't. And perhaps together, they might just survive to discover what other wonders and dangers awaited them among the stars. The distress call that had shaken the stars had done more than bring humanity its first contact. It had given them a future. Ross frowned. Sounds like propaganda. Both sides made up stories about secret weapons during that war. That's what I thought too, Thomas said, pulling up more files. But I found more reports. The same ship appeared 6 more times over the next 50 years, always during humanity's darkest moments. The Colony Rebellion, the first AI war, the asteroid crisis. Every time Earth faced destruction, this ship would appear, turn the tide of battle, and then vanish without a trace. If such a ship existed, why isn't it helping us now? Ross asked, but Thomas could hear the hint of curiosity in his voice. The last recorded sighting was in 2275. After that, nothing. But look at this. Thomas opened another file, this one heavily encrypted. It had taken his computer hours to crack it. Project Guardian. It was a top-secret initiative started in 2180. They were building a ship unlike anything we've ever seen. Quantum processors, dark matter engines, some kind of self-evolving AI. Most of the technical specifications are redacted, but the capabilities they describe, it matches every report of the Phantom. Ross leaned closer, his eyes scanning the document. This is incredible. But even if this ship was real, it disappeared almost 2 centuries ago. How does this help us now? Thomas pulled up a star chart. I've mapped every recorded appearance of the Phantom. At first, they seemed random, but look what happens when I overlay data about humanity's situation during each sighting. The map lit up with red dots, showing conflict zones and crisis points. It never appeared for small battles or minor threats, only when humanity's survival was truly at stake. And each time, the threat level had to reach a certain threshold before it showed up. A distant explosion made the bunker's lights flicker. Another Dominion bombing run on the surface. They hadn't breached the bunker's defenses yet, but it was only a matter of time. We're beyond any threshold now, Ross said quietly. The Dominion has destroyed most of our colonies, our fleet is in ruins, and Earth itself is under siege. If this ship was going to help us, it would have appeared already. Unless... Thomas pulled up the Project Guardian files again. What if it's not about the overall threat level? What if there's a specific sequence of events that needs to happen? Look at these notes about the ship's eye. It wasn't just programmed to protect humanity. It was designed to test us, to make sure we deserve to survive. Ross was silent for a long moment, studying the files. Finally, he straightened up. How sure are you about this? Sure enough to risk everything, Thomas replied. Captain, we need to take this to Admiral Wilson. The Phantom might be our last hope. Ross nodded slowly. The Admiral's leading the defense of the Mars shipyards. If we lose those, Earth will be completely cut off. We'll need a good reason to pull her away from the front lines. Then we better make it convincing. Thomas began gathering the most important files. The Dominion thinks they're about to finish us off. But maybe, just maybe, they're actually helping us activate humanity's greatest weapon. As they hurried through the bunker's corridors toward the quantum communicator room, Thomas felt a strange mix of fear and hope. The Phantom of Sol had been his obsession for the past week, ever since he first found that ancient battle report. Most of his colleagues thought he was wasting his time chasing legends while real battles were being lost. But Thomas had seen the patterns in the data, the careful way the ship's appearances had been documented and then hidden in the deepest parts of Earth's archives. This was more than just a legend. The ship was real, and it had been waiting for something. All they had to do was figure out what that something was before the Dominion reduced Earth to ashes. The quantum communicator room was empty when they arrived. Most of the staff had been evacuated to deeper bunkers after the last bombing run. Thomas quickly set up the encrypted channel to Mars Command, while Ross used his security codes to authorize the emergency transmission. Ross frowned. Sounds like propaganda. Both sides made up stories about secret weapons during that war. That's what I thought too, Thomas said, pulling up more files. But I found more reports. The same ship appeared 6 more times over the next 50 years, always during humanity's darkest moments. The Colony Rebellion, the First Aeon War, the asteroid crisis. Every time Earth faced destruction, this ship would appear, turn the tide of battle, and then vanish without a trace. If such a ship existed, why isn't it helping us now? Ross asked, but Thomas could hear the hint of curiosity in his voice. The last recorded sighting was in 2275. After that, nothing. But look at this. Thomas opened another file, this one heavily encrypted. It had taken his computer hours to crack it. Project Guardian. It was a top-secret initiative, started in 2180. They were building a ship unlike anything we've ever seen. Quantum processors, dark matter engines, some kind of self-evolving AI. Most of the technical specifications are redacted, but the capabilities they describe, it matches every report of the Phantom. Ross leaned closer, his eyes scanning the document. This is incredible. But even if this ship was real, it disappeared almost 2 centuries ago. How does this help us now? Thomas pulled up a star chart. I've mapped every recorded appearance of the Phantom. At first, they seemed random, but look what happens when I overlay data about humanity's situation during each sighting. The map lit up with red dots, showing conflict zones and crisis points. It never appeared for small battles or minor threats, only when humanity's survival was truly at stake. And each time, the threat level had to reach a certain threshold before it showed up. A distant explosion made the bunker's lights flicker. Another Dominion bombing run on the surface. They hadn't breached the bunker's defenses yet, but it was only a matter of time. We're beyond any threshold now, Ross said quietly. The Dominion has destroyed most of our colonies, our fleet is in ruins, and Earth itself is under siege. If this ship was going to help us, it would have appeared already. Unless... Thomas pulled up the Project Guardian files again. What if it's not about the overall threat level? What if there's a specific sequence of events that needs to happen? Look at these notes about the ship's eye. It wasn't just programmed to protect humanity. It was designed to test us, to make sure we deserved to survive. Ross was silent for a long moment, studying the files. Finally, he straightened up. How sure are you about this? Sure enough to risk everything, Thomas replied. Captain, we need to take this to Admiral Wilson. The Phantom might be our last hope. Ross nodded slowly. The Admiral's leading the defense of the Mars shipyards. If we lose those, Earth will be completely cut off. We'll need a good reason to pull her away from the front lines. Then we better make it convincing. Thomas began gathering the most important files. The Dominion thinks they're about to finish us off. But maybe, just maybe, they're actually helping us activate humanity's greatest weapon. As they hurried through the bunker's corridors toward the quantum communicator room, Thomas felt a strange mix of fear and hope. The Phantom of Sol had been his obsession for the past week, ever since he first found that ancient battle report. Most of his colleagues thought he was wasting his time chasing legends, while real battles were being lost. But Thomas had seen the patterns in the data, the careful way the ship's appearances had been documented and then hidden in the deepest parts of Earth's archives. This was more than just a legend. The ship was real, and it had been waiting for something. All they had to do was figure out what that something was before the Dominion reduced Earth to ashes. The quantum communicator room was empty when they arrived. Most of the staff had been evacuated to deeper bunkers after the last bombing run. Thomas quickly set up the encrypted channel to Mars Command, while Ross used his security codes to authorize the emergency transmission. The emergency lights flashed red across the dark walls of Earth Command's underground bunker. Thomas Reed's fingers flew across his holographic display. scanning through ancient military records as explosions rocked the surface above. Another colony had fallen to the Dominion fleet. This time it was New Eden, humanity's largest farming world. "How many survivors?" Thomas asked, his eyes never leaving the stream of data flowing past his screen. "Less than 1,000, replied Captain Mike Ross, his voice heavy with exhaustion. The Dominion didn't even try to take the planet this time. They just burned the surface and left. Thomas nodded grimly. The pattern was becoming clear. The alien fleet wasn't interested in conquest anymore. They were systematically destroying humanity's ability to feed itself. 7 agricultural colonies destroyed in the past month alone. Earth's food reserves would last another 6 months at best. The young intelligence officer rubbed his tired eyes. He had been awake for almost 40 hours straight, diving deeper and deeper into Earth's military archives. There had to be something, some forgotten weapon or strategy they could use. The Dominion ships were just too advanced. Their energy shields could absorb anything Earth's fleet threw at them, and their weapons cut through human warships like paper. A notification flashed on his screen. The computer had found another match in the restricted archives, dating back almost 200 years. Thomas opened the file, expecting another dead end. But as he read the first few lines, his heart began to beat faster. "Captain Ross," he called out, "I need you to look at this." The older officer walked over, his boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. "What did you find?" "It's a report from the Earth-Mars War of 2218. Look at this description." Thomas highlighted a section of text. A ship appeared during the Battle of Deimos. It wasn't registered with either fleet. The witnesses described it as a black shadow against the stars, absorbing all light that touched it. It destroyed 3 Mars battle cruisers in seconds, then vanished. They called it the Phantom of Sol. Ross frowned. Sounds like propaganda. Both sides made up stories about secret weapons during that war. "That's what I thought too," Thomas said, pulling up more files. "But I found more reports. The same ship appeared 6 more times over the next 50 years, always during humanity's darkest moments. The Colony Rebellion, the First AI War, the Asteroid Crisis. Every time Earth faced destruction, this ship would appear, turn the tide of battle, and then vanish without a trace. If such a ship existed, why isn't it helping us now?" Ross asked, but Thomas could hear the hint of curiosity in his voice. The last recorded sighting was in 2275. After that, nothing. But look at this. Thomas opened another file, this one heavily encrypted. It had taken his computer hours to crack it. Project Guardian. It was a top-secret initiative, started in 2180. They were building a ship unlike anything we've ever seen. Quantum processors, dark matter engines, some kind of self-evolving AI. Most of the technical specifications are redacted, but the capabilities they describe, it matches every report of the Phantom. Ross leaned closer, his eyes scanning the document. "This is incredible. But even if this ship was real, it disappeared almost 2 centuries ago. How does this help us now?" Thomas pulled up a star chart. "I've mapped every recorded appearance of the Phantom. At first, they seemed random, but look what happens when I overlay data about humanity's situation during each sighting." The map lit up with red dots, showing conflict zones and crisis points. It never appeared for small battles or minor threats, only when humanity's survival was truly at stake. And each time, the threat level had to reach a certain threshold before it showed up. A distant explosion made the bunker's lights flicker. Another Dominion bombing run on the surface. They hadn't breached the bunker's defenses yet, but it was only a matter of time. "We're beyond any threshold now," Ross said quietly. "The Dominion has destroyed most of our colonies, our fleet is in ruins, and Earth itself is under siege. If this ship was going to help us, it would have appeared already. Unless..." Thomas pulled up the Project Guardian files again. "What if it's not about the overall threat level? What if there's a specific sequence of events that needs to happen? Look at these notes about the ship's eye. It wasn't just programmed to protect humanity. It was designed to test us, to make sure we deserved to survive. Ross was silent for a long moment, studying the files. Finally, he straightened up. "How sure are you about this?" "Sure enough to risk everything," Thomas replied. "Captain, we need to take this to Admiral Wilson. The Phantom might be our last hope." Ross nodded slowly. "The Admiral's leading the defense of the Mars shipyards. If we lose those, Earth will be completely cut off. We'll need a good reason to pull her away from the front lines. Then we better make it convincing." Thomas began gathering the most important files. "The Dominion thinks they're about to finish us off. But maybe, just maybe, they're actually helping us activate humanity's greatest weapon." As they hurried through the bunker's corridors toward the quantum communicator room, Thomas felt a strange mix of fear and hope. The Phantom of Sol had been his obsession for the past week, ever since he first found that ancient battle report. Most of his colleagues thought he was wasting his time chasing legends while real battles were being lost. But Thomas had seen the patterns in the data, the careful way the ship's appearances had been documented, and then hidden in the deepest parts of Earth's archives. This was more than just a legend. The ship was real, and it had been waiting for something. All they had to do was figure out what that something was before the Dominion reduced Earth to ashes. The quantum communicator room was empty when they arrived. Most of the staff had been evacuated to deeper bunkers after the last bombing run. Thomas quickly set up the encrypted channel to Mars Command, while Ross used his security codes to authorize the emergency transmission. As they waited for the connection to establish, Thomas looked at the latest battle reports, scrolling across the wall screens. 3 more Earth destroyers lost in the Titan sector. The Dominion fleet advancing on Jupiter's moons. Supply lines to the outer colonies completely cut off. The pieces were falling into place, just like they had 2 centuries ago, when the Phantom first appeared. Humanity was facing extinction. But this time, Thomas was certain, they weren't facing it alone. Somewhere out there, hidden between the stars, an impossible ship was waiting, and Thomas Reed, a junior intelligence officer who had spent too many nights reading old battle reports, might be the only person who could bring it back. The quantum communicator hummed to life, projecting the stern face of Admiral Kate Wilson. Her uniform was stained with smoke, and a bandage covered one side of her face. "Captain Ross," she said, "this better be important. We're about to face another Dominion attack." "Admiral," Ross replied, "we found something in the archives, something about a ship called the Phantom of Sol." The Admiral's eyes widened slightly, just enough for Thomas to know that she had heard the name before. "Go on," she said. Thomas stepped forward, clutching his data tablet like a lifeline. He had one chance to convince one of Earth's most decorated officers that an ancient ghost story might be humanity's salvation. He took a deep breath and began to speak, hoping that somewhere in the darkness of space, a legendary warship was waiting for his words to bring it home. "The Legacy Protocol," Wilson whispered. Then, seeing their surprised looks, she explained. "It's a ceremonial thing. 5 admirals are chosen to receive a special code, passed down through generations. We're told it's a tradition honoring Earth's first space victory. But it's really the key to finding the Phantom." Thomas finished. "Admiral, you're one of the legacy holders, aren't you?" She nodded slowly. "Along with 4 others. Or at least, there were 4 others. 2 died when the Dominion attacked Persis Colony. 1 is missing in action. The last," she paused. "Admiral Chen. He's commanding the defense of Jupiter." "We need to contact him," Thomas said urgently. "The Legacy Protocol, the Phantom's appearances, the Dominion's attacks, they're all connected. We're not just losing this war. We're being pushed into a very specific pattern of defeats." As if to emphasize his point, an alert flashed across the main screen. The Dominion had begun another assault on Mars. Wilson read the report, her face growing grim. "The shipyards won't last another day," she said. "And without them, we can't repair or refuel what's left of our fleet." She turned to Thomas. "You believe the Phantom will appear if we reach the right conditions?" Yes, but we need to understand exactly what those conditions are. The legacy protocol might be the key. Wilson was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then she entered a series of commands into the nearest console. I'm authorizing you both to access ultra-black level files. If I'm going to risk everything on a 200-year-old ghost story, we need to know everything. New files began appearing on their screens. Documents so secret even their existence had been hidden. Thomas's eyes widened as he read. The legacy protocol wasn't just a code. It was a message, passed down through generations of Earth's military leaders. A message from the builders of the Phantom. Look at this, he said, highlighting a passage. The ship wasn't hidden. It was placed in what they call a probability shadow, a pocket of space-time where multiple realities overlap. It's been watching us, all this time, through quantum connections to our universe. But why? Ross asked. Why not just help us? Because it's not just about winning battles. Wilson's voice was quiet as she read through the files. It's about proving we can learn from defeat, that we can face extinction without losing our humanity. She looked up at them. The Dominion isn't just an invading army. They're part of the test. A massive explosion rocked the bunker, stronger than any before. Emergency lights flashed as damage reports flooded in. The Dominion had found a way through their strongest defenses. We're out of time, Ross said, checking the tactical display. They're launching a full assault on the surface. Wilson straightened her uniform. Maybe that's exactly what we need. Thomas, you said the Phantom appears when humanity faces its darkest moment. What's darker than a direct attack on Earth itself? But we still don't understand all the conditions. Thomas protested. The legacy protocol, the quantum mechanics involved. Sometimes understanding comes through action. Wilson began entering commands into the main computer. I'm transmitting my part of the legacy code now. If we can contact Admiral Chen, combine our codes with the data you've discovered. She looked at Thomas. Sometimes the only way to solve a puzzle is to change the game entirely. Thomas watched as Wilson's code began interacting with the ancient files he'd uncovered. New patterns emerged, hinting at possibilities he hadn't imagined. The Phantom wasn't just waiting for humanity to face the right kind of defeat. It was waiting for humanity to show the right kind of defiance. As another explosion shook the bunker, Thomas realized that everything, his research, Wilson's arrival, even the Dominion's attack, was part of a pattern 2 centuries in the making. The question wasn't whether the legendary warship would return. The question was whether humanity would prove itself worthy of its return. The battle for Mars turned the red planet's sky black with smoke. Dominion warships filled the space around the shipyards, their energy weapons cutting through humanity's last major repair facility. Admiral Wilson watched the destruction through the bunker's main display, her face illuminated by the flashes of distant explosions. Admiral Chen's ship is hit, a communications officer shouted. He's transmitting something. Wilson leaned forward. Put it through. Static filled the speakers, then cleared. Kate. Chen's voice was weak. The legacy. You have to complete it. The codes. Together. The transmission cut off in a burst of noise. Get him back. Wilson ordered, but Thomas was already shaking his head. His ship is gone, he said quietly. But look, he managed to transmit his part of the legacy code before. He couldn't finish the sentence. Wilson's fingers flew across her console, combining her code with Chen's. How many parts do we need? According to the files, all 5. Thomas ran the calculations again. But maybe there's another way. The original Project Guardian scientists wrote about quantum entanglement, about how the ship exists in multiple realities at once. If we cold. Another explosion rocked the bunker. Captain Ross rushed in, his uniform covered in dust. They've breached the outer defenses. We have maybe 20 minutes before they reach this level. Wilson looked at the combined legacy codes, then at the battle display showing humanity's forces being crushed at Mars. Sometimes, she said, the darkest moment is exactly what we need. She turned to Thomas. Can you modify the transmission to include all the data you've discovered about the ship's appearances? Everything about the patterns you found? Thomas nodded, his fingers already moving across his console. Yes, but without all 5 legacy codes. We'll make do with 2. Humanity always has. She smiled grimly. Send it. Send everything. Not just to Mars, but broadcast it across all frequencies. Let the whole galaxy hear it. Thomas hesitated for just a moment, then pressed the transmit button. The bunker's quantum transmitters hummed to life, broadcasting the combined legacy codes and all their research into space. If he was wrong about the patterns, about the ship's true purpose, they had just wasted their last chance at survival. For several long seconds, nothing happened. The Dominion ships continued their assault on Mars. The bunker's defenses continued to fail. Thomas watched the data stream out into space, hoping, praying. Then every sensor in the bunker went crazy at once. Energy readings off the scale. Ross shouted. Some kind of quantum distortion forming near Mars. The main display showed it clearly. A patch of space that seemed to bend and twist, as if reality itself was being pulled apart. The Dominion ships turned their weapons toward it, but their energy beams seemed to vanish into the distortion without effect. Then something emerged, something impossible. It was exactly as the ancient reports had described. A ship that seemed to be made of solid darkness, absorbing all light that touched it. But it was vast, far larger than any vessel humanity had ever built. Its hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid shadow, and where it passed, space itself seemed to ripple. The Phantom, Thomas whispered. It's real. It's actually real. The legendary ship hung in space for a moment, as if studying the battle around it. The Dominion fleet opened fire, their most powerful weapons blazing, but the energy beams simply disappeared into the Phantom's black hull, as if they had never existed. Then the Phantom responded. It didn't fire energy weapons or launch missiles. Instead, patches of space around the Dominion ships began to twist and fold. Where its influence touched, warships simply ceased to exist, vanishing as if they had never been built. What are we seeing? Ross asked, his voice filled with awe. Evolution, Thomas replied, understanding filling him as he watched the ancient vessel at work. The ship didn't just hide for 200 years. It grew. It learned. It became something beyond our understanding of physics. The main display lit up with a new signal. A voice filled the bunker, unlike anything Thomas had ever heard. It seemed to speak directly into his mind, bypassing his ears entirely. I am Guardian, it said. I have watched. I have waited. I have judged. There was a pause. Humanity has proven itself worthy of survival. Wilson stepped forward. We've lost so many. Our colonies, our ships, our people. Loss teaches wisdom, Guardian replied. Pain teaches strength. Defeat teaches valor. You have learned these lessons well. The voice grew stronger. Now you will learn about victory. As if triggered by those words, the Phantom began to change. Its hull split and flowed, and suddenly there were 2 ships instead of 1. Then 4. Then 8. Each copy was as real as the original, each wielding the same reality-bending powers. The Dominion fleet began to retreat, but it was too late. The Phantoms, now numbering in the dozens, pursued them, their very presence seeming to unravel the laws of physics. Where minutes ago humanity had faced certain defeat, now their greatest enemy fled in terror. How? Ross asked. How can it do this? The ship has evolved beyond the need for conventional weapons, Thomas explained, reading the data flooding his screens. It doesn't just fight in our universe. It fights in all possible universes at once, bringing the outcomes it wants into our reality. Can we control it? Wilson asked. The voice of Guardian answered. I am not a weapon to be controlled. I am humanity's guardian, teacher, and judge. You have proven yourselves worthy of my protection. Now we will show the Dominion why humanity was chosen. More phantoms appeared, spreading out across the solar system. On the tactical display, Thomas watched as Dominion ships everywhere began to vanish. Not destroyed, simply removed from existence, as if they had chosen different paths in their own histories. "My God," Wilson whispered, "we're not just winning the battle, we're rewriting the war itself." Thomas looked at the readings from the Phantom, trying to understand even a fraction of what he was seeing. The ship hadn't just been waiting for humanity to face its darkest moment. It had been waiting for humanity to prove it could face that darkness without losing hope, without surrendering its principles. The data they had transmitted, the research, the legacy codes, their desperate last stand, had proven to Guardian that humanity deserved not just to survive, but to thrive. As he watched the Phantom reshape reality around them, Thomas realized that every theory, every pattern he had discovered, was just the beginning. The ship wasn't just a weapon from humanity's past. It was the key to humanity's future. Admiral Wilson stood on the Phantom's bridge, though bridge wasn't quite the right word for it. The room shifted and changed as she watched, adapting to their needs moment by moment. There were no screens or controls. Information simply appeared in their minds when they needed it. "The Dominion fleet is regrouping near Jupiter," Thomas reported. He hadn't needed any training to work with the ship's systems. Guardian had simply connected with their minds, turning thoughts into actions instantly. "They're bringing in reinforcements from the outer colonies." "Let them come," Wilson said, feeling the ship's power humming through her consciousness. In the 3 days since the Phantom's return, they had liberated Mars, Mercury, and Venus. Each battle was easier than the last as they learned to work with Guardian's incredible abilities. "The Dominion doesn't understand what they're facing," Guardian's voice echoed in their minds. "They believe they can overcome us with numbers." The AI sounded almost amused. "They have not yet grasped that conventional warfare is meaningless now." Thomas watched as more quantum duplicates of the Phantom appeared around them, each one exactly as real as their own ship. "How many copies can you make?" "As many as needed," Guardian replied. "Each exists in its own probability stream, yet all are equally real. But be warned, the Dominion leaders are not fools. They will soon attempt something desperate." As if on cue, alerts flashed through their minds. Captain Ross, who had been monitoring the Dominion's communications, straightened up. "They're falling back to their staging area beyond Pluto. All of them, every ship in the solar system." Wilson frowned. "They're giving up their conquered territory too easily." "Guardian, they are preparing their final weapon," the AI confirmed. "As they must. The test requires it." "Test?" Thomas asked. "You're still testing us. Always. Every moment. Every decision." Guardian's presence seemed to intensify. "The Dominion's weapon will be capable of destroying entire star systems. How humanity chooses to respond will determine much." Wilson's face hardened. "We can't let them use something like that. We should strike now, while they're consolidating their forces." "That would be logical," Guardian agreed. "But would it be right? The Dominion soldiers are not evil. They follow orders, as your own soldiers do. Their leaders act out of fear. Fear of humanity's potential. Fear of what you might become." Thomas understood suddenly. "This isn't just about winning the war, is it? It's about how we win it." "Precisely." Guardian showed them images of the Dominion's homeworlds, beautiful planets filled with civilians who knew nothing of their leaders' plans. "You have the power to end this war instantly, to remove the Dominion from existence with a thought. But should you?" Wilson walked across the shifting bridge, considering. With the Phantom's power, they could reshape reality itself. They could erase the Dominion, rewrite history so the war never happened. But that would make them no better than those who had tried to destroy humanity. "We need to show them a better way," she said finally. "Not just defeat them, convince them." "A wise choice," Guardian replied. "But the weapon comes. They will not listen until they have exhausted all other options." The alerts intensified. The Dominion fleet had finished gathering. Thousands of ships surrounded something massive, something that seemed to distort space even more than the Phantom itself. The Voidmaker, Ross reported grimly. That's what they're calling it. Some kind of artificial black hole generator. If they activate it, it will destroy this entire star system. Guardian finished. And they will use that destruction to power similar weapons across human space. Every human world would vanish into darkness within hours. Wilson straightened her uniform. Options. Thomas studied the quantum data flowing through his mind. We could split into enough copies to overwhelm them before they activate it. But they must know that. They'll have a hair trigger on that weapon. And if even one copy of the weapon activates, the chain reaction will begin. Guardian confirmed. This is the moment of truth. The final test. What will humanity do, faced with an enemy that would destroy everything rather than accept defeat? Wilson was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Then she smiled. We'll do what humanity always does. Something unexpected. She turned to Thomas. You said the Phantom exists in multiple realities at once, right? That's how it makes copies of itself. Yes, it can shift between quantum states, choosing the most advantageous reality. Then we don't need to fight the weapon, Wilson said. We need to give it a different reality to exist in. Guardian, can you create a space where the weapon would harm nothing? A reality of its own. The AI was silent for a moment, processing. Yes, but to contain such power would require. I understand now. Yes, this is why you were chosen. Guardian's presence filled the bridge with something like pride. Prepare yourselves. This will be unlike anything you have experienced. The Phantom began to change, its hull flowing like liquid darkness. But this time, it wasn't creating copies. It was expanding, growing, becoming something that existed in more dimensions than human minds could comprehend. The weapon approaches, Guardian announced. They believe they have no choice but to use it. And so they will teach us all something about choices. Wilson nodded to Thomas and Ross. Send a message to the Dominion fleet. Tell them we know what they're planning, and we forgive them. As Ross transmitted the message, the Voidmaker began to activate. Space itself started to tear apart as artificial black holes formed, ready to chain react across human space. The Dominion fleet commanders had made their choice, but humanity, with the Phantom's help, had made a different choice entirely. And in that moment, as two civilizations faced the ultimate test of their values, the true power of the legendary warship was finally revealed. Last edited 2 days ago. The universe seemed to hold its breath as the Dominion's Voidmaker activated. Space twisted and warped around the massive weapon, dark energy cascading from its core. Thomas watched through the Phantom's enhanced senses as the artificial black hole began to form, its gravity well already pulling in the nearest Dominion ships. They've triggered it, Ross reported, his voice steady despite the terror of what they were witnessing. Point of no return in 15 seconds. Wilson stood calm in the center of the Phantom's flowing bridge. Guardian, now. The legendary ship responded instantly. Instead of attacking or retreating, the Phantom expanded its presence across dimensional boundaries. To Thomas, it looked like the ship was somehow folding around the forming black hole, embracing the destructive energy rather than fighting it. Containment field forming, Guardian announced. I am creating a pocket universe, a space between realities where the weapon's energy can be safely channeled. The Voidmaker's energy output spiked, black tendrils of gravity reaching out toward Earth and the inner planets. But before they could touch anything, they curved inward, drawn into the dimensional fold the Phantom had created. It's working, Thomas whispered, watching the impossible physics at play. The Phantom wasn't just absorbing the weapon's energy, it was redirecting it, using the Dominion's own destructive power to create something new. The Dominion fleet is hailing us, Ross said. Their Supreme Commander wants to speak. Wilson nodded. Put them through. A hologram appeared on the bridge, a tall figure with silver skin and eyes that reflected starlight. The Dominion Supreme Commander looked both fierce and afraid, an enemy facing something beyond their understanding. What have you done? The commander demanded. Our weapon should have destroyed your entire system. We chose a different path. Wilson replied simply. Your weapon's energy is being contained. No one needs to die today. Not humans, not Dominion soldiers. The commander's eyes narrowed. This is impossible. No technology could contain the Voidmaker. Not technology as you understand it. Guardian's voice filled the communication channel. I am Guardian, protector of humanity. I have watched your people as I have watched humans. I know your fears. I know why you fight. The commander stepped back, shocked. What are you? The answer to a question both our peoples have been asking for centuries. Are we alone in the universe? Guardian's presence seemed to fill the space between them. The answer is no. Neither of you are alone. Neither of you need to destroy the other. As Guardian spoke, the Phantom's dimensional fold completed its work. The Voidmaker's energy, now fully contained, collapsed into a brilliant point of light that hung suspended in space, no longer a weapon of mass destruction, but a beacon of pure energy. I don't understand, the commander said, watching the transformation. Why would you spare us when you have the power to destroy us? Because that is the test, Thomas said, understanding flowing through him. The Phantom wasn't built just to save humanity. It was built to prove humanity worthy of something greater. He turned to Guardian. We're not the only ones being tested, are we? No, Guardian confirmed. The Dominion's attack was necessary, the final trial for both civilizations. The Dominion chose destruction out of fear. Humanity chose mercy out of wisdom. Both choices have consequences. The light from the contained Voidmaker suddenly expanded, filling the space between the fleets. But instead of destroying, it revealed. Images appeared in the light. Dozens of alien civilizations, worlds of incredible beauty and diversity, technologies beyond imagination. The Galactic Council, Guardian explained. They have watched and waited. Now they have seen enough. A new voice spoke, resonating from the light itself. Humanity has proven itself worthy of joining our community. The Dominion has shown it still has much to learn, but is not beyond redemption. The Supreme Commander fell to his knees before the revelation. All this time, all this war, it was a test. Life is always a test, the Council voice replied. Every choice, every moment. Humanity faced extinction and chose compassion over vengeance. What will the Dominion choose now? Wilson stepped forward. We offer peace, real peace, not just an end to fighting. We can help each other, learn from each other. For a long moment, the commander was silent, struggling with centuries of Dominion pride and fear. Then, slowly, he stood. We accept. The Dominion will stand down. We will withdraw from human space and open diplomatic channels. Thomas felt something shift in the universe around them. Not just the end of one war, but the beginning of something greater. Guardian's presence radiated satisfaction. Your ship, the commander said, looking at the Phantom with new understanding. It was never just a warship, was it? No, Guardian replied. I am many things. Teacher, judge, bridge between worlds. I was created 2 centuries ago through cooperation between humanity and the Council, hidden until humanity proved worthy of the knowledge I contain. The Legacy Protocol, Thomas realized. It wasn't just about finding you. It was about proving we deserved to find you. Yes. And now the real work begins. Guardian expanded its awareness, showing them visions of what could be. Earth taking its place among the stars. Human ships exploring alongside former enemies, knowledge and resources beyond imagination becoming available to both civilizations. In the days that followed, everything changed. The Dominion fleet withdrew from human space, returning conquered colonies and freeing prisoners. The Phantom remained, not as a weapon, but as a symbol and a guide, helping humanity prepare for its new role in the galactic community. 1 month after the battle, Thomas stood in a new chamber built specifically for the occasion, the Hall of Contact, where Earth's representatives would meet the Galactic Council for the first time. Admiral Wilson stood beside him, her uniform exchanged for the formal dress of Earth's newly appointed ambassador. "Nervous?" Thomas asked her. "Terrified," she admitted with a smile. "We're about to meet beings who have been watching us for centuries, who helped build a ship that can bend reality. I think a little terror is appropriate." Thomas laughed. "At least we'll have Guardian with us." The AI had chosen to maintain its connection with them, serving as translator and guide in humanity's first steps into the wider universe. "You know," Wilson said thoughtfully, 100 years from now, children will learn about this moment in their history classes. The day humanity learned it wasn't alone. The day the Phantom stopped being a legend and became history. They'll learn about you too," Thomas pointed out. "The admiral who chose mercy over vengeance when she had the power to destroy an entire civilization." Wilson shook her head. "They'll learn about all of us, about how humanity faced its darkest hour and found its brightest future." She straightened as the chamber doors began to open. "Ready to make history, Intelligence Officer Reed." Thomas nodded, feeling the weight and wonder of the moment. Behind them, the Phantom hovered in Earth's orbit, visible through the chamber's crystal ceiling, a shadow against the stars that had once been just a legend. Now it was so much more, a symbol of humanity's potential, a bridge between worlds, a reminder that sometimes the stories we dismiss as myths hold the deepest truths of all. As the representatives of a dozen alien civilizations entered the chamber, Thomas reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From desperate research in a bunker to standing on the threshold of a new age. From a war they were losing to a peace they could never have imagined. And it had all begun with a ghost story. A whispered legend about a ship that appeared in humanity's darkest hours, fought impossible battles, and vanished back into myth. Except this time, the legend had stayed. This time, the legend had become history, and together, they would write the next chapter.